Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming to Lincoln Tower Apartments. My name is Avrami Klor. I'm part of the ownership group that recently bought the building. And I think we instantly become neighbors with a lot of you. There's a lot to say when you come into a new town. It's the building itself that first brought me into Springfield. I was taken by what a prominent role the building played in the downtown residency in the past in Springfield. I love the fact that it was close to the State House, the Governor's Mansion, so many other great buildings in the Capitol complex. But I started to realize it's the people is what makes Springfield great and what gives Lincoln Tower its charm. The residents who lived here, past, present, those who come to Springfield to work, they go home, you know, they'll travel in for work and they'll go back, or they'll make Springfield a home away from home, or those that live here. That's really what makes Springfield great and what gives the building its charm. I've only just met the mayor, but his reputation was that he really wanted to revive downtown Springfield and make it a place where people want to come back, where people want to come visit, where people want to come live. And I obviously share that vision and hope very much, and want to play whatever small role as a business we can play here downtown to partner with the mayor and to partner with everybody else that shares the vision and wants to help and see downtown thrive and grow. There's a lot of history here in Springfield, and there's a lot to be celebrated. Today, we're going to be celebrating two of the iconic figures, of the iconic presidents that have a very close association here with Springfield. And I'm really excited and honored to hear from each of our speakers today. I really am. To learn, to share it, to spread it. Mr. Mayor has a lot he can be doing today, President's Morning, as everybody could. There are a lot of events going on, so we're really honored that you chose to spend a few of your moments here, you know, at our special President's Day event. So, Mr. Mayor, if you can please come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Rami Klor. We really appreciate your investment in Springfield, and you found in a short period of time what a lot of us long-timers have known, and that's what keeps us here. But what really keeps us thriving are our new individuals coming into our great city and sharing their insights, because sometimes we get caught in the day-to-day activities and we lose what a gem we have here. And it's great to have individuals like yourself that come in and really share what drew you here, and it really gives us another reminder of the great place we live. And what made it great, of course, is our people. And so that goes without saying, especially for President Lincoln and President Barack Obama that had their legislative roots here. And so I'd like to thank the residents for their hospitality, and especially Tom Boyd and the planning committee putting this together. And usually I speak off the cuff, but since they wanted me to prepare remarks, I went ahead and did so, because when you're talking about the influence of presidents, they put us on the world stage, not only for really governing our world, or our country, and having impact on our world, but most importantly with race relations, because when it's all said and done, it doesn't matter where you live in our world, it all matters how we get along. And both of President Barack Obama, and he learned from the legacy of President Lincoln, that's what it's all about. You know, how do you set aside your differences, embrace our cultural differences, and really build on each one's strengths. So with that, today we gather in recognition of President's Day in honor of our two presidents that Springfield had influence in their leadership, the Honorable Abraham Lincoln and President Barack Obama. It is important to recognize those in leadership that have come before us to make lives better for our future, living united, not divided. Our lives are shaped by where we live and the people that we encounter. The people and places of Springfield had a dramatic impact on Abraham Lincoln. On February 11, 1861, during his farewell address, as he departed Springfield to become the 16th President of the United States, Lincoln said, "To this place and the kindness of these people, I owe everything. Here I have lived a quarter of a century and have passed from a young to an old man. Here my children have been born and one is buried." With him, Lincoln brought his understanding of equality and unity to Washington, D.C. In so doing, President Lincoln was able to lead our great nation through its most difficult times and preserving the United States as one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Being the home of Abraham Lincoln, I have said many times as mayor that Lincoln's words are as true today as they were when he said them. My personal favorite saying that we strive to live up to as a nonpartisan city council is government of the people, by the people, for the people. Each government should heed those Lincoln words to preserve his service leadership to all people. Abraham Lincoln truly understood that together we could accomplish the greater good for everyone. Fast forward to February 10, 2007, on a blustery, cold winter's day in Springfield. Then Illinois Senator Barack Obama made his presidential candidacy announcement on the steps of the old state capitol, where Lincoln gave his famous House Divided speech. During his announcement, it was clear that Springfield and Lincoln had a profound impact on the future President Barack Obama when he said, "It was here we learned to disagree without being disagreeable, that it's important to compromise so long as you know those principles that can never be compromised, and that so long as we're willing to listen to each other, we can assume the best in people instead of the worst." When he went to Washington, D.C., President Barack Obama took with him Springfield's and Lincoln's influence, providing service to the people. During his presidential announcement, Barack Obama said, "In the face of despair, you believe there can be hope. In the face of a politics that shuts you out, that's told you to settle, that's divided us for too long, you believe we can be one people, reaching for what's possible, building that more perfect union." With that philosophy, President Barack Obama was able to pass legislation to provide health care for all people. What President Abraham Lincoln and President Barack Obama illustrates to me is how far we have come as a country and how far we have yet to go. Springfield has more influence on race relations than any other city in the country. Springfield is known for the great emancipator, Abraham Lincoln, and the first African-American president, Barack Obama. But we also have our tragic past of the 1908 race riots, which led to the formation of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. During that last year's state bicentennial, we rededicated the race riot markers with Teresa Haley and the NAACP so they are more pronounced and included sayings from President Lincoln and President Obama. Even though our country has come a long way from the Civil War through civil rights and segregation, our country, our state, and our city still has challenges to overcome disparity, especially amongst minorities. We can overcome these challenges by seeing the good in one another and accepting our differences and knowing, as President Lincoln and Obama knew, that we can achieve greatness being united. Being the home of Abraham Lincoln, we need to carry on Lincoln's legacy so we can achieve true equality for all people. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for those heartfelt, authentic, and true words and sentiments and statements. Springfield is or can be, you know, a small, close-knit community. But what's clearly apparent is the big hearts that so many people have in pursuing such important matters. Teresa, who I also just met recently, may not know this, but she's actually one of the big inspirations behind what we're doing here today. A while ago, I read in the journal that there were plans to honor President Obama more here in Springfield, and as happens every now and again in a state capital, the plans got stalled. But I was surprised. I mean, you'll see around Springfield a picture or two or a statue or two of President Lincoln. Hey, we have his name in our beautiful building. But I was surprised as I looked into it how little was done to honor President Barack Obama. Truth be told, it's unconventional business wisdom for a business to wade into areas that can be considered political. I thought about it. But I also thought, you know, back in, I think, '66, you know, there was a poll done that 2/3 of Americans did not have a favorable view of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I was astounded to know that fact. Today, of course, almost everybody recognizes what a historical civil rights icon he was. But it took so long. And I felt, why do we have to wait so long to recognize and honor history when it's happening right before our eyes? So I don't want to miss anything, but I'll just say it was very meaningful to me to be able to be hopefully a part of your revolution and your, you know, of recognizing it. And thank you, Haley, for Teresa Haley, for being here today and for the work you've done. And if you can please come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Rami. I can tell it's in your heart. So welcome to Springfield. And thank you, Mayor. He always tries to steal my thunder. It's amazing when the mayor and I are in the same house and we're talking about Abraham Lincoln and President Barack Obama, and also the 1908 race riots, which led to the establishment of the NAACP. Rami gave us a stat about what happened with Dr. King, with the fact that 2/3 of Americans really didn't believe in I Have a Dream. Still today, over 2/3 of Americans don't believe in the NAACP and what our mission is. We are the oldest, the boldest, the most loved, the most hated civil rights organization in the world. And that is for a reason. It's because the NAACP is just not about black folks. It's about all folks. It took all people coming together, literally coming together and fighting for civil rights, seeing that a few people were denied what God made possible for all of us. So that's really what the NAACP is about. And being born and raised here in Springfield, it is a privilege to stand before you all today on this President's Day. I'm proud of our first black president. And whatever we can do to highlight President Barack Obama, I'm going to do my best as long as I have breath in my body to make sure that we're doing that. And I hope you all in this room are going to join me. Are you going to join me? You know, I would listen to my grandparents, and my mom's from New Orleans, and as they moved up here, we would talk about the first black president, and if they would be able to see the first black president the way they talked, Miss Nell Clay, I didn't think I would be able to see our first black president. But glory be to God, we were able to see that, and he is still standing. He's made all of us proud, not just black folks, but white folks. I mean, look at Barack's DNA. A white mother, an African father. That's what most of us are. The United States is a melting pot. Springfield is a melting pot. People come to Springfield for better opportunity, regardless if it's political, if it's educational, or if it's just for a better standard quality of living. We offer all of that in our community. And when the mayor and I got together and we were trying to find ways to commemorate the 110th commemoration of the race riots, it's not an anniversary, it's not a time to celebrate. It's a time to reflect. What happened then, and could it happen again today? And what happened in Ferguson a couple of years ago, my goal was to make sure that never happened in Springfield. We don't want to go back. We know our past, and we want to make sure the rest of the world, especially the United States, understands the horrible activity that took place here in Springfield August 14th and 15th in 1908. So we won't repeat it. And when we see that ugly head start rearing itself, we want to be able to smash it on impact to show that this is a loving, caring community, that we are God's children. And he put us here in Springfield for a reason. Rami and I was talking, I noticed this little hat on top of his head, like my hat too. But I noticed his hat on the top of his head, and I shared with him that my grandmother was Jewish. She was a black Jew. And for us, it wasn't just about religion, it was about culture. And when she died, we had a funeral at the temple, and then we had a funeral at the Baptist church.
All right now.
One was really, really short, and one was really, really long. But that shows where we come from. So sometimes when you look at us, you really don't know our story. So being here today on President's Day to talk about our presidents and their story and the impact that the NAACP has had on this country up until now and where we plan to go from here is truly an honor. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Teresa. And it really, the story of your grandmother especially, I mean, just illustrates and highlights, you know, exactly everything you were saying and the mayor was saying, how it is about the people and we are all one, and we have to be bold, like you said, and do what's right, not what's popular. And, you know, we're committed here in Lincoln Tower Apartments to proudly display, you know, Lincoln Hall and Obama Hall for all our residents and all the visitors to continually read and admire and remember everything that was said and everything that needs to still be said. History is a funny thing. You never know how things can turn out. You know, President Lincoln, we never had the opportunity to come back to Springfield, but if he did, he could have, it's a good chance he would have come back here to Springfield. Today, we're going to hear from Christian, who, those who don't know, runs the museum, and he can tell you a little bit more about what he does. But that's one of the things that touched me initially was the history and its importance and what we can do, what it should teach us about the future. And we're proud to have asked Christian to come and say a few words. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning. What an honor to be here today. I'm the Lincoln historian at the museum, so I specialize in Abraham Lincoln. But it's a real thrill to be here today, in particular to talk about the Obama and Lincoln connection. Our bicentennial exhibit last year was on Illinois' four presidents, Lincoln, Grant, Reagan, and Obama. And my main task in developing that exhibit and in working on that exhibit was actually to write a lot of the content for Obama and research Obama. And a lot of what I did for that exhibit was find ways to link those two men together, and in particular the long shadow that Lincoln cast, that Obama was very aware of. Obama very consciously tried to put himself in Lincoln's legacy. And then last week, I was in Washington, D.C. for 2 days, and I didn't have a lot of free time, but the free time I did have, I decided I wanted to visit the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And there, you know, if you've been to that, it's a wonderful museum. I highly recommend everyone goes. I know I'm here to promote our museum, but I want to promote that museum too. And it called the story of African American history in that museum basically culminates with Obama's election. It's the last thing you see before you leave. And then I went to the National Portrait Gallery, and there's Barack Obama's portrait, too, in the Presidential Gallery with Abraham Lincoln. And then I walk down to the Lincoln Memorial because I got to pay my respects to the Lincoln Memorial when I'm in town, and there's crowds of people coming to see Lincoln. And I'm from Canada, and I've only been in Illinois now for almost 6 years. I've only lived in Springfield for that same amount of time. And it really struck me being in DC, here's these two Illinoisans, here's these two guys with Springfield connections, and there's huge crowds of people coming to learn about them and to see pictures of them. And how important that is. I think here in Springfield, Lincoln in particular, I think what was said earlier is right. I think we need to find more ways to recognize Barack Obama here in Springfield, but Lincoln is everywhere in Springfield. You can't go anywhere without seeing Lincoln. And I think as a result, we tend to forget what a huge deal Lincoln is, what a tremendous impact Lincoln had, not just on the United States, but the world. Lincoln is the most famous American in the entire world. He's more written about than any other American. That's really important. Lincoln is, for all kinds of reasons, Lincoln is just an extremely influential figure. And we really try to tap into that at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum, which I hope most of you have been to, and if you haven't yet, please come visit. Because the other thing that the museum represents is the impact. You know, we went big with the world, let's go little with Springfield, let's go local. Lincoln had a tremendous impact on Springfield. Springfield made Abraham Lincoln, and Lincoln repaid the favor to Springfield in a lot of ways. When Lincoln got to Springfield, some of you have probably heard this story, the first thing he does, he goes and visits a carpenter and asks him to make him a bed. Then he goes to the general store and he tries to get his bedding, and he doesn't even have enough money to afford the bedding that he needs for that bed he's having built. And one of the clerks in the store, Joshua Speed, who's going to become a good friend of Abraham Lincoln's throughout his life, says, well, you can come stay with me for a while. This is how humble Lincoln is when he gets here to start his legal career. He had a bit of a legal career in New Salem, but it's here where he has his first partnership. And from that, he builds. Lincoln becomes one of the most prominent lawyers in town. He's already a politician, but he becomes a leader in the Illinois Whig Party and becomes one of the formative members of not just the Illinois Republican Party, but then the National Republican Party, and of course its first successful candidate for president. Lincoln becomes involved in all kinds of aspects of Springfield's growth. It's Lincoln as the key member of the Long Nine members of the Illinois legislature who get the capital moved here to Springfield. That's probably the main way that Lincoln himself personally gives back to Springfield. He makes Springfield, he helps to make, as a key player in making Springfield the state capital. But Lincoln also, his legacy here has a huge impact on Springfield as well. When Lincoln passes away, there's a huge debate that occurs immediately, a national fight over where is Lincoln's body going to go. Is Lincoln's body going to stay in D.C.? Are they going to bury him in the Capitol building like they had thought of doing with George Washington? Are they going to bury him in Chicago? Mary Lincoln insists that he be buried here. I was going to quote from Lincoln's farewell address, but the mayor, and that's fine, the mayor stole my thunder. But you got the message, right? The message was Lincoln believed that everything he owed to Springfield, and Mary felt the same way. And all of his children were born here. He lost one of his children here. And he found his professional and political success here. And so Mary said, this is where he's got to go. And so Lincoln's tomb was here, and from that tomb, all the rest of the various aspects of Lincoln's legacy that are visible all over town, all radiated basically from that tomb, right up to the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum that we have now. So again, just a real honor to be here today and to talk about the legacy of Lincoln. And please come visit us at the museum and library. I'm always there. I'm the Lincoln historian. I'd be happy to come out and chat with you and show you around. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. So clearly, there was something to the feeling I had about the passion of the people. I'm humbled to be a small part and inspired to want to do more. And I thank you all for spending some time at this special President's Day event here at Lincoln Tower Apartments, and hope to be able to get to know and work further with each of you in the future. Thank you very much.